This video is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts, the best place to get your classic and vintage football shirts. To get cheap retro Palace shirts, click the link in the description below. And for an extra 10% off, use the code CFSPJ10 at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook, and in today's podcast, I'll be looking over the game against Huddersfield by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you interviews with Roy Hodgson, James Tomkins and Andros Townsend after the game. So let's begin. Palace climbed out of the Premier League relegation zone after picking up a fine victory at Huddersfield Town thanks to goals from James Tomkins and Luka Milivojevic. The Eagles dominated proceedings throughout and deservedly took the lead midway through the first half when James Tomkins forced the ball home following a corner, and then sealed the points on 68 minutes when top scorer Milivojevic scored his 8th for the campaign after Andros Townsend was brought down inside the box for a penalty. The Terriers offered very little in response as a clean sheet was comfortably secured at the snowy John Smith Stadium, making all the effort from the travelling Eagles worth it. The visitors attacked their opponents from the first whistle and could have easily found themselves ahead within the first 7 minutes after carving out a good number of opportunities. James McArthur saw a couple of shots blocked before Palace forced an early corner, and Wilfried Zaha had a shot from just outside the box deflect over before Milivojevic bent a free kick a whisker wide. However, after a promising start from the Eagles, they were dealt a blow when Jeffrey Slutt picked up an injury and was replaced by Yohan Cabaye. But exactly midway through the opening 45 minutes, the reshuffle didn't matter as they grabbed a deserved lead. Zaha won a corner and left which Milivojevic swung into a crowded box. A hack clearance by Steve Mounier at the front post allowed the ball to drop to Tomkins. The defender saw his initial shot saved by the keeper, but he was on hand to stab home the loose ball and register his second goal of the season. With the lead secured, Palace continued to enjoy the most threatening moments of the half, with Andros Townsend blazing well over after good hold-up play by Christian Benteke. And Wayne Hennessy went into the break having barely dirtied his gloves, such as Hodgson's team's dominance. They continued to be in control of proceedings after the restart, and on the hour mark they came closest to adding the all-important second goal. Once again a corner proved to be Town's downfall as Townsend's delivery at the back post fell nicely for Tomkins, and just as it looked like he was going to complete an unlikely brace, as his shot drilled towards the far post, Mounier was in the perfect place to clear it off the line. 3 minutes later the hosts carved out their first opportunity of the game, when a cross fell kindly from Mounier who blasted it wide from a good position, and that proved costly as on 68 minutes the Eagles doubled their lead. A slick counter-attack began with Zaha winning the ball on the edge of his own box, playing a 1-2 with McArthur and slipping in Townsend, who was brought crashing down in the box by an ill-timed challenge by Jorgenson, allowing Milivojevic to score his 6th penalty of the season. David Wagner's team had shown little in the way of concern for Palace throughout, and it seemed unlikely that they would strike twice to deny the Eagles like Manchester United had done a few weeks previously, and Hennessy was called into action for the first time 9 minutes from the end to make a routine stop from Raja van Perara, who belted one wide a few minutes later. However, Palace came closest to adding to the scoreline, when Cabaye saw a wicked shot ripple the top of the net from distance, and then in stoppage time Lawson denied him from a similar range, but that time the precious 3 points were already safely in the bag. It was a good day for Crystal Palace on Saturday as they recorded a 2-1 away win at Huddersfield Town to move out of the bottom 3. The Eagles recorded their 3rd away win of the season as goals from James Tomkins and Luka Milivojevic sealed the 3 points for Palace at the John Smith Stadium. But what did we learn from the game in West Yorkshire? Here are 5 things. Number 1. A case for the defence. It was a quiet afternoon for Wayne Hennessy in the Palace goal, with Huddersfield not having a shot on goal until the 63rd minute of the game. Indeed, the Terriers only had 2 shots on target in the whole game, with Hennessy barely tested. But much was made down to the performance of the defenders in front of him, with the back four of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Sakho, James Tomkins and Patrick Van Aanholt performing well as a unit, with some vital interceptions and challenges throughout the game to help Palace keep their 6th clean sheet of the season. Number 2. Spot on Luka. When Andros Townsend was fouled in a box, there was no doubt as to who would be taking the spot kick. Luka Milivojevic had already netted 5 times from the penalty spot this season, and that duly became 6 as he confidently stepped up to fire home. No player in the Premier League has scored more penalties this season, and only Andy Johnson with 11 has scored more penalties in a season in the top flight for the Eagles. Number 3, Benteke stepping up. With Crystal Palace without the services of Alexander Sorloth, who missed out through injury, Benteke was the sole striker in the Eagles squad for the game, albeit not for the first time this season. But after Hodgson said that the Belgium international had responded well after being substituted at half-time against Chelsea the week before, Benteke put in a much better display in West Yorkshire, leading the line well and causing the Terriers problems with his physical presence and hold-up play. Number 4, Terriers drawing a blank. For the 17th time in the Premier League this season, Huddersfield failed to score a goal. That is a league high, and the Terriers never really looked like doing so against Palace. As previously stated, much of that down to was how well Palace defended, but Huddersfield will need to find a way past defenders in their remaining games if they are to secure survival. David Wagner's men have now failed to score in 8 of their last 11 games in the top flight, which includes this game and a 0-0 draw with Swansea last weekend, where the Terriers had 30 shots on goal. And number 5, Wan-Bissaka's rise continues. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has earned many plaudits for his performances in recent weeks, having come up against the likes of Tottenham, Manchester United and Chelsea, and coming through the test with flying colours. And he continued his impressive introduction to the Premier League with another composed display in West Yorkshire, making the most tackles with 6 and winning back the ball the most times of any other player on the pitch with 12. So I'm now going to move on to the player ratings, but before I start, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at @Crystal for all the latest Palace news. And also, if you're on Facebook, do feel free to join a Facebook group, which is a really great place to join in with discussions and also share your opinions with other fans. And much like a forum, it's a great place to upload any videos, photos and any news articles you've found online that you want to share with other Palace fans. Then of course the best place to do that is on the Facebook group. So like I said there, if you are someone who wants to follow a place to get all the latest Palace news, then of course do follow us on both Twitter and Facebook. And if you are someone who likes to go on forums, likes to have discussions with other fans, and of course likes to post your own opinion, then of course do feel free to do so in the Facebook group, because you will be accepted into that group. Now, another great place to share your opinion is in your YouTube comments. So if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then do feel free to drop a comment below the video with your player ratings, rating the players' performances from 1 to 10, with obviously 10 being the best. And even if you are a Huddersfield Town fan, or whether you're a Palace fan, even if you don't want to do your player ratings where you rate the players' performances, do drop your views below the video with your thoughts of the game. Who you thought was at fault for the goals that Palace scored against Huddersfield, whether that was their mistakes, whether you thought it was a penalty from Andros Townsend, whether you thought that Christian Benteke should have had one, and just your overall views on the Palace performance, which in my opinion was quite good. So if you do have any views of the game, or you want to do your player ratings, then of course do feel free to do so. And it's not just so that I can come back to the video and see what the listeners thought, but also any other fans who come to the video, they can not only listen to my opinion in the podcast, but they can also go below in the YouTube comment section and of course see what other listeners of the podcast also thought about the game. So if you are someone who likes to have your opinion heard and wants to share your opinion with myself, then of course do feel free to comment below the video. So if you do want to follow any of these social media pages or join the Facebook group, then do check all links that will be in the description below. But I'm now going to move on to my player ratings, starting in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I am going to give a 6. A comfortable afternoon for the Welshman with barely a save to make. So Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 6, and much like some of his performances have been in the last sort of month or so, it was really a game where he wasn't really tested, and actually there wasn't quite a lot for him to do throughout the game. Now obviously the last few weeks I've given him a bit of criticism, but if you look back at the last month or so, he's been getting slowly better, and whether that was because of his own confidence or whether that's because of the new goalkeeping coach, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but his performances have gradually been getting better. And this was another game here where, although he didn't have much to do, when called upon, he done what he had to do. And really for me, that's what you want from a goalkeeper, because in this game against Huddersfield, they didn't have a shot until the midway through the second half, and that's purely because of how good our defence was in terms of restricting Huddersfield, and obviously the fact that Huddersfield weren't really playing that well. But the fact that Hennessy, whenever called upon, he was still able to make his save, and he's got the protection from the back four, that's of course great to see. And for me personally, I do think a 6 is a fair result for him, because the word I used was comfortable. I think it was a comfortable afternoon for him, nothing challenging, not really having to make any saves, and like I've said already, keeping us in the game and making, even though he's got protection from the back four, making a few saves here and there was of course great to see. Now especially towards the end of the game, we were 2-0 up, Huddersfield trying to get a consolation or at least get something from the game. They were pumping quite a lot of balls into the box. They had a few chances towards the end of the game. But Hennessy, much like he's been doing, not necessarily the last 2 or 3 games, but the month before that, he's been playing quite well. And that's exactly what he done in this game here. You know, Huddersfield were putting in balls into the box, and nearly every single one of them either went over or Hennessy was able to claim it, which is showing that actually, even though people criticise him for not having a command of his area, he's slowly improving, and actually in this game here we saw a prime example of that. But if I do have to criticise one thing from his game, yes, he didn't do much in the game, but I do think his kicking was quite suspect, quite bad in the game. And when you consider how tall he is and actually the leg power he's got in terms of just pumping that ball long to Christian Benteke, he's got the power, and in recent games we've seen that he's got the kick length so he can kick it that long. But the thing we've been missing in terms of that in this game is the fact that yes, he could kick it long, but most of the time it wasn't really accurate, and it was quite bad. So if I had to pick out one thing from his game against Huddersfield here, which was particularly bad, I would say it was his kicking. But as a game overall, and the main reason I've given him a 6 is, although he didn't have much to do in the game, I still thought he done quite a good job. So do comment below with your thoughts of Wayne Hennessy's performance, but I do think a 6 is a fair result. So I'm now going to move on to the right back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who I'm going to give a 7. Was composed in a fine display at right back, making some good challenges and getting forward in support of the attacks as well. Was booked though. So Aaron Wan-Bissaka here is his 4th game in the Premier League, and once again, much like he's done in the last 3 games, he's put in another fantastic performance here and rightly does deserve the 7 I've given him. But in terms of his performance here, obviously I talked last week in terms of Fosu-Mensah possibly coming back into the squad after not being able to play against Manchester United, and I said that if Wan-Bissaka keeps up his performances, there's no reason why he should be taken out of the side. And once again here against Huddersfield, he's proved once again actually what a talent he is and why he should be in that starting 11, because the quality he brings to us defensively and also offensively is of course great to see, and that's obviously some of them aspects of his game we saw quite a lot against Huddersfield. And in terms of keeping the clean sheet, he had quite an important role to play in that. But in terms of his performance at right back, I think he was really composed, and when you consider he's basically the youngest player on the pitch, I think if you exclude the Huddersfield players, he's probably the youngest guy on the pitch. He doesn't look out of place, he looks composed, he knows what he has to do, and in terms of defending and attacking, he knows what to do defensively in terms of his positional play and making blocks and tackles, and in terms of going forward, he's quite composed. And although not all of his crosses are fantastic, quite a few in this game were actually quite good as well. So he's not only composed playing right back defensively, but also in terms of going forward, which you expect from a right back, he was really good at doing that as well. But in terms of the main thing which I was really impressed with in this game was just the amount of challenges he made in the game. And you know, the fact that he loves a challenge and loves a tackle was great to see. And you know, there were a number of occasions where Huddersfield were on the attack, and obviously Tomkins and Sakho played fantastic in terms of making blocks and tackles. But when it was out on the wing, Wan-Bissaka would be the man there to man mark the winger for Huddersfield. And 9 times out of 10, Wan-Bissaka put in a fantastic challenge and got the ball back. And there was one occasion where he got the ball back and he managed to, you know, get it away from the attacker and actually clear it long as well. So not only is he good at just making a challenge, but also he's quite good at making that challenge and making sure that from that he can win the ball back, which was of course great to see as well. Now in terms of going forward, you know, I briefly mentioned this already, but I thought he was great in terms of supporting the attack. So playing on the right hand side, it was primarily Andros Townsend playing on that wing, and I thought he assisted him quite well in terms of just giving a bit of support, giving someone a 1-2 going forward, and I thought that them two as a partnership worked really well, as did Vanano and Wilfried Zaha on the other side. So actually I think that actually our fullbacks are forming quite a good partnership with the wingers, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, like I said already, he doesn't look out of place and he's starting to slot into the team, not only because of how he's playing, but also the fact that he's got that good partnership with other players around him. Now, of course, obviously his performance was superb, you know, brilliant recovery in terms of, or recovery play in terms of, you know, getting back, making challenges and just keeping us tight at the back. That was, of course, great to see. And, you know, he is a great talent. You know, he's been at Palace for quite a few years now. You know, I'm not sure what year group he joined, but he's been with us a relatively long time. And actually, he's looking like actually quite a good find and looking like quite a good talent. So hopefully, over the next few games, he can develop his skills even more, because he's looking like certainly that he's got the potential. But all he's got to do now he's got that chance to have a consistent run in the team, hopefully that can help him to develop more as a player. Now obviously I gave him a 7, you know, I've highly praised him, but there was one negative of his performance. He did get booked. I'm not sure when exactly the booking was. Obviously I don't really pay attention to the bookings, rather rather pay attention to the player's performance. But he obviously got booked towards the end of the game, I'm sure. But taking one for the team, nothing really bad there. So overall, for me, I was really impressed with Wan-Bissaka's performance, and I do think he deserves a 7. And much like the last 3 games where it was against top 6 sides, he managed to show his quality there. And once again, against Huddersfield, he showed his quality once again. And, for me, he's showing that actually he's quite a good talent. And for me personally, unless he gets injured or we want to change our formation or whatever Hodgson wants to do tactically, unless he's going to make a drastic change, I don't see any reason why Wan-Bissaka should be taken out of the team, because quite honestly, he's been one of our best players in the last few games. So the right back Aaron Wan-Bissaka here, a 7 for him. Now to move on to the centre back James Tomkins, who I'm going to give an 8. Continued his impressive form of late with another assured display. Was also on hand to poke the ball home from close range when Huddersfield failed to clear a corner. So James Tomkins here, I've given him an 8, and I've talked about Wan-Bissaka in terms of his defensive performance being quite solid, and the fact that we've kept our first clean sheet in quite a while. You've got to give credit to the whole defence, and especially James Tomkins, because much like Wan-Bissaka, much like Sakho and Van Aanholt as well, I thought as a collective, I thought we were very strong defensively, very solid, I suppose you could say. And I think that James Tomkins playing the centre back role, I think he was the architect of that defensive performance. But in terms of his overall performances, recently, of late, he's been in impressive form, almost every week. So the last sort of 5-6 games, he's constantly been on my man and match shortlist, and very rarely has got below a 7, which really just shows how much of a good run of form he is in at the minute. And once again, this game here carried on that form with another assured display. We never looked like conceding really because of how well him and Sakho were defending, and also just being the aerial threat as well from corners, and obviously using his aerial ability to clear the threat of Huddersfield. That was of course great to see as well. But that's something you want to see from players. You're in a relegation battle, you want someone to stay calm, composed, and just have an assured performance, and certainly that's what I got the feel from Tomkins' performance. Of course he was very good defensively, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I've given him an 8, obviously because of his defensive performance was great. But the main thing is obviously he put us ahead midway through the first half. It was a bit of a scrappy goal in terms of the goalkeeper making a very fantastic save. Yes, the rebound came to Tomkins, but the fact that he was able to have that quick response and straight away, as soon as the ball came to him, poked it into the goal, that was of course great to see. And I talked about us being defensively quite solid from corners. Very rarely Huddersfield got a chance, whereas on the other hand, Huddersfield, they failed to deal with the corner. They weren't really organised at the corner, and that gave Tomkins the space at the back post. Loads of teams that Tomkins has scored against, they've never marked their far post, and obviously Tomkins is taking advantage of that, because no one seemed to have picked up so far the fact that Tomkins waits at the back post and waits for a chance like that. And much like he did here with the goal he scored, yes, the goalkeeper made a fantastic save the first time round, but he made no mistake, Tomkins. He was there straight away, rather than just moaning about it. Your first shot got saved straight away. Quick reactions, put the ball in the net right in front of Palace fans. That was of course great to see. But like I've said, yes, it wasn't the best goal in terms of it went straight in, but the fact that he was able to react to the goalkeeper making the save, which that's really thing that impressed me. But the main reason I've given him the 8 is because of his overall defensive performance. But the fact that he added a goal on top of that really just gave him what he deserved, because recently he's been playing fantastic. He's had a few chances from corners, so for now he's actually once again put in another good performance, and he's finally got that goal as a reward. But once again, the word I keep using every week to describe his performance is immense. This game here against Huddersfield, he was exactly that once again. Blocks and tackles all over the place. I keep repeating myself week in, week out. We know what to expect from Tomkins now, but he seems to be getting better and better, and I'm sure that West Ham fans are absolutely kicking themselves, obviously with one of their former players playing absolutely fantastically for a rival. But to be honest, if I had to summarise his overall performance, I gave him an 8, and obviously I rank him really highly in terms of his overall performance. But I just think overall, fantastic performance, done nothing wrong really, and was just rock solid throughout. So he didn't let Huddersfield get past him, and of course, to add to that fantastic solid performance, he also was able to be a threat from a corner. So James Tomkins here, an 8 for him. Now to move on to Mamadou Sakho, who I am going to give a 7. Made some important interceptions and challenges on his return to the side. Also made a fine tackle to recover after almost being caught out by Steve Mounier when trying to clear. So Mamadou Sakho here, I've given him a 7, and much like the performance of the whole back line, and especially James Tomkins as well, I thought he was really solid in this game. And when you consider he hasn't actually played for quite a while, he's just come back from his second injury of the season, you can understand him being a bit rusty, but I didn't see any of that here in this game against Huddersfield. And like I said already, he was actually quite important, as was most of the back line, in terms of keeping that clean sheet. But one of the things obviously that I like about Mamadou Sakho is the fact that he always makes these important interceptions and challenges, and basically that's what he's done here against Huddersfield once again. We know what he can do. He does it week in, week out when he plays, and once again playing alongside Tomkins, I think they do really well together. But once again here against Huddersfield, like I said, he's just come back from injury, but still he put in the same standard of performance which he would normally do, which was of course great to see. Now of course we know he's a bit mad sometimes, and there was a bit in the first half where he went to try and clear the ball, which is all great. I'm fine with him, playing the ball out from the back, but he's basically just hit it straight at a Huddersfield player into Steve Mounier. But instead of just going there and trying to basically moan about it, the fact that you've misplaced a pass, instead of doing that, he got straight down, chased down Mounier, and made a fantastic tackle to recover from that mistake, to stop Mounier going through on goal. Because if it wasn't for that, even though the ball was sort of going away from Mounier, if Sakho hadn't made that tackle, it was a one-on-one with Wayne Hennessy, which we know that probably he would have scored. So the fact that Sakho was able to make a mistake, which we know it's in him sometimes, he's a bit mad like that, but the fact that he's able to recover it shows his class, and that's what shows a good defender, the fact that they can make a mistake, and rather than moaning about it, they get straight up straight away and make sure that nothing comes from that. And that's exactly what Sakho did there in terms of making that fine tackle against Steve Mounier. So once again, that was fantastic to see. But the main thing I like about it is, yes, he did make the mistake which almost cost us, but the fact that he was trying to play the ball out from the back is the thing that I really like. Martin Kelly, yes, he's great in terms of blocking shots and winning headers, but the thing that Kelly's a bit weak with is actually playing the ball out from the back. Quite a lot of the time he just puts it long. So it's great to have Mamadou Sakho back, not only because of how solid he is defensively, much like Kelly, but the fact that he brings us that little bit more in terms of playing it out from the back. That was of course great to see as well. Now I've seen a few people on Twitter say that this is possibly our best back four, and I certainly can agree with them in terms of the partnership and centre-back. I think that Tomkins and Sakho is our best centre-back partnership, and also I think that Van Aanholt is the best left-back at the club. I think that Jeffrey Slupp, as weird as it sounds, I think Jeffrey Slupp is a better defender in terms of making tackles and blocks, whereas I think Van Aanholt's a much better left back, because defenders have obviously got to defend, whereas the left back has actually got to go forward as well as get back and defend, and I think that Van Aanholt's much better at doing that. So in terms of the back four, I think that Van Aanholt, Sakho and Tomkins is probably the best three. And in terms of the right back, even though Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been playing great, I think we've got to give it a few more games, and if he continues the form that he does, then I can certainly do agree with quite a lot of people and say that actually that back four is the best we've got. And yes, Kelly played in that back four last weekend, but I do think that the whole defence, not only the centre backs but the full backs, and of course the Hennessy in goal and Milivojevic just in front of them, I think that the whole defence and the players in and around them did look a little bit more assured when Mamadou Sakho came back into the side. And that's not to say that Kelly is bad, it's just the fact that the team looks and feels more confident when Sakho plays as opposed to Kelly. So once again here, Sakho not only showing his influence on the pitch in terms of making these important challenges in interceptions, but just showing what impact he can have on the team as a whole. So Mamadou Sakho here, great return back into the side, and I do think a 7 is a fair result. Now to move on to the left back, Patrick Van Aanholt, who I am going to give a 6. Made a couple of important contributions at left back, including a vital interception in the first half to cut out a through ball. So Patrick Van Aanholt here, I've given him a 6, and although obviously he scored against Chelsea, he scored against Man United, although he obviously scored 2 and 2, he couldn't quite make it 3 and 3, but still, nevertheless, I still thought he put in quite a good performance, and although he wasn't one of the better players on the field, much like the whole defence, I do think he was still quite important in terms of helping us keep the clean sheet. And like I said in that little introduction, I thought he made quite a lot of important contributions at left back. It wasn't like he was fantastic throughout the whole game, like the likes of Tomkins, Wan-Bissaka and Sakho. He wasn't making outstanding blocks here and there, but I still thought there was quite a few important contributions here and there, which he obviously did to help the team effort. And there was one in particular, in the first half, lovely through ball by Huddersfield, and Patrick Van Aanholt, even though Sakho was there, Patrick Van Aanholt was able to make an interception and cut out that through ball, which once again, even though people criticise him for his defensive duties, the fact that he was able to stretch and actually intercept that ball and get rid of the danger, that was of course great to see as well. But, you know, overall, you know, there isn't really much to say about the game, because although he was quite solid defensively, you know, like I said, didn't really do anything outstanding, and unlike the last few games, he didn't really have any chances offensively. But I still thought generally he was quite good. But, you know, if I had to criticise him on one thing, you know, which doesn't make him have a fantastic performance, it's just the fact that he gave away a few silly corners on a few occasions. You know, there's nothing wrong with, if in doubt, hoofing it out, but sometimes I think it was just a bit silly just to give away a few corners. But other than that, like I've said, it wasn't a fantastic performance, but I do think it was quite an average performance. And really, I was being quite nitpicky, picking out that bit about the corners, because overall, I do think his performance was alright. So do comment below with your thoughts, and whether you do think, when Jeffrey Slupp comes back from injury, whether you do think that he remains at left back, or he comes back to left back, or whether you do think that actually Patrick Villano, over the last 2 months, he's been quite good. So do comment below whether you think he keeps his place, or whether you do think once Jeffrey Slupp comes back from injury, whether you do think that he comes back into the side. Because I know there's quite a lot of debate as to whether who is the better defender, who is the better left back. But personally for me, based on the last few performances and based on this performance here, I do think we can certainly say that Patrick Villano, at the moment, is the better player in the team. So do comment below with your views on that. Now to move on to the midfielder and captain Luka Milivojevic, who I am going to give a 7. Neat and tidy in midfield, and was confident from the spot to fire home and give Palace the cushion of a 2-goal lead. So Luka Milivojevic here, I've given him a 7, and his performance last week was slightly disappointing in the fact that he always sets high standards, but in this game here against Huddersfield, you know, a big crunch game, I thought he'd done a fantastic job. Not only obviously what he normally does in terms of just being that shield and that sort of protection in front of the back four, but I do think that actually his overall play in the midfield, not only his defensive work but also his offensive work in terms of trying to start up attacks and pass the ball forward, I thought that was really good in this game as well. Now obviously last weekend, you know, I gave him a bit of criticism, you know, against Chelsea he wasn't really that great, but I do think here against Huddersfield in the big game he made a step up, and you know, as the captain you've got to do that, and I think he'd done exactly that. Not only obviously helping the whole team up their performance and rallying the troops as they call it, but also his own performance. I thought he stood up and, you know, he really got counted really. He was quite important to the way he played. But in terms of his midfield play, you know, like I said in that little introduction, I thought it was quite neat and tidy. You know, it was very, even though quite a lot of the team kept losing possession quite a lot in the game, I do think that Luka was one of these players who, although there was a few times where he tried to put a ball down the wing and it went out for a throw-in, other than that I thought he was quite neat and tidy in the midfield. And once again, you know, we know how good he is from the penalty spot. He made no mistake here, sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. Really confident when he stepped up, and you know, whenever we see him step up for a penalty, we know it's almost certain that he's going to score. And once again, fantastic, penalty kick, you know, right into the corner, midway, also right to the corner of the mid part of the goal, and of course sending the goalkeeper the wrong way. So very nice shot into that middle left corner. And of course it's great to see obviously him score another goal, but also it's obviously great to see actually he's keeping up his quite good conversion rate, because other than that one penalty he's missed, he's actually proved quite a fantastic player from the penalty spot. And you could argue, because he scored the most Premier League penalties, you could argue that actually he's probably at the moment the best penalty taker in the league. But I'll leave that to you guys to comment below the video. But personally for me, you know, once again, great to see the captain step up and take the penalty so confidently. And obviously, you know, we were sort of lurking on a dangerous 1-0 lead. We scored that, gave us that 2-goal cushion, and obviously we didn't relax like we've done in other games where we sort of just try and protect the lead. We still tried to attack Huddersfield, but just giving that sort of 2-goal cushion just helped us see out the game. And obviously at that point, that sort of killed Huddersfield, and we didn't really see much from Huddersfield in the ways of attacks after that. But in terms of his overall performance, you know, I talked about him being neat and tidy, but I thought he was very good, especially given his protection to the back four, which we know he's very good at. And once again, you know, I talked about the back four being quite crucial to keeping the clean sheet, but I still thought the number of tackles and blocks that Milivojevic made were also quite integral to, you know, the way we set up and the way we went on to win the game. And like I've said already, you know, mentioning the penalty again, obviously his overall defensive performance was good, but you know, the penalty he took once again into that the middle left part of the goal, sending the goalkeeper the wrong way, that was of course great to see as well. So Luka Milivojevic here, you know, the captain, led the team really well, had a really good defensive performance, and like what he'd always does, he confidently put away the penalties, so a 7 for him. Now to move on to his midfield partner James McArthur, who I'm going to give a 7. Put in a shift in midfield without too much impact going forward. So James McArthur here, I've given him a 7, and much like his performances have been recently in terms of him playing in the midfield and just having that energy and just putting pressure on the opposition backline, that's basically what James McArthur's role here was against Huddersfield, and he done exactly that, and actually he played really well. And you know, most of the time people don't really give him credit for the fact that he closes players down, he closes the opposition down, and he has so much energy. But personally for me, although it goes unnoticed, I do like to pick it out because he's one of these silent performers that, you know, although he can play really well, most of the time it goes unnoticed. So of course, once again here against Huddersfield, it was great to see him have once again another great performance. But the main reason I've given him a 7 is, like he always does, he puts in a shift in the midfield. You know, he might not have many chances going forward, he may not make as many blocks and tackles as Milivojevic, but the fact that he tries to help us win that midfield battle, which we did, and the fact that he helps us to have a control of the game, and the fact that he puts pressure on the opposition, which obviously helps us defensively because they've got less options to attack us. Even though it's not necessarily fantastic what he's doing, it's really important and integral to the way we play. Now, like I've said already in that little introduction, you know, he doesn't have too much impact going forward. You know, last season he chipped in with a few goals here and there. He scored a few this season, but this new role where he's not necessarily playing behind the striker, but he's playing more as a central midfielder in front of the defensive midfielder, doing that role is really important because having that energy allows us to have that control of the midfield, but also, like I've said already, putting pressure on the back four of the opposition obviously gives them less chances to pass out from the back, which ultimately takes the pressure off the back line. So although people don't necessarily give him the credit he deserves, because most of the time the stuff you see from him isn't really fantastic, but it's really important. But, you know, once again, a fantastic performance from him. And, you know, I love this performance. I loved his performance. I've seen many people say that. But the fact that he's able to actually just do a job for the shift, maybe go unnoticed, but the fact that he's able to just to get on with his job and have that control in the midfield is, of course, great to see. But much like every week, I'll repeat myself week in, week out. But, his performances are always full of energy and effort. And that's exactly what I saw here from McArthur. You know, I've given him a 7 because of how, you know, his performance overall, the fact that he had the energy and he was putting in loads of effort into the game, and the fact that he was quite integral to our domination, I suppose you could say, of that midfield battle. And although it isn't fantastic what he does, and I keep repeating this again, although it isn't fantastic, it's really important to the way we set up. So James McArthur here playing in midfield, another good performance from him, not necessarily defensively or offensively, but that control and that energy in the midfield was fantastic. Now to move on to Jeffrey Slupp, who I'm going to give a 5. Loose with a couple of passes and made an overzealous challenge in the air early on, before going off after taking a knock. So Jeffrey Slupp here, I've given him 5, and you could say it's a bit unfair considering he wasn't really on the pitch long enough before he got taken off with an injury. But Jeffrey Slupp, the time he was on the pitch, he wasn't necessarily having a fantastic game. And although against Man United I thought he played quite well, against Chelsea less so, and once again here, obviously before he got taken off for the injury, I don't think he was really playing well, and I think it's really because I think he's a much better player playing at left back in a sort of 4-2-3-1 formation, but because we were playing 4-4-2 starting this game, I don't think he works quite well with Van Aanholt down that side. You know, I think that it's either one or the other, or you sort of play a more, you don't play a 4-4-2, but you actually play a 4-2-3-1, which I think would suit Slupp better. So I don't know whether it was that affected his game, but whatever it was, he wasn't really having that good of a game. And when you consider when he came back from injury, how good he was against United, the last 2 games against Chelsea and Huddersfield haven't really been that great, and this game was another great example here. Now obviously towards the beginning of the game, you know, I mentioned this briefly earlier, but we were giving the ball away quite a lot. We weren't really keeping hold of it, and actually Jeffrey Slupp was one of the guilty players of that. You know, there was quite a lot of loose passes that he put across the field, which obviously Huddersfield took advantage of. And obviously there was another one, an overzealous challenge in the air before he went off. You know, once again doing things that are not necessarily going to help the team, just really doing unnecessary things, but also just giving the ball away. So overall, didn't really have that much impact on the game. And obviously he done all of this, you know, gave the ball away, made that challenge in the air, and then he got taken off with a knock, which was quite unfortunate. But I don't really like to say that players get injuries, but it seemed to help us in the game, because playing a 4-4-2 with Slupp in the team, we took him out, we moved Zaha out wide and moved to a sort of a 4-5-1 formation, and that seemed to drastically improve our gameplay And, you know, it's not nice to see players go off injured, but I actually think that if he hadn't have gone off injured, we probably wouldn't have found a way into the game. So the fact that he did go off injured did help us to get back into the game. But of course, it's not ideal when you've just come back from injury, you've got players back, and all of a sudden a player goes back injured. But hopefully it's not too serious. He's having a scan today on Monday, so we'll just have to wait and see the how serious that is. But when you consider we've got an international break coming up, he's obviously got enough time to recover, so hopefully it isn't too serious. But like I said, I hope he's okay. You know, it doesn't look too much of a serious injury, so maybe it was just a severe rolled ankle, so hopefully he should recover from that soon. But like I said already, I've given him a 5, not necessarily because his performance was completely disappointing, purely the fact that he wasn't on the pitch long enough and he didn't really do that much before his injury. So do comment below what you think, and whether you do think that actually if Sloppy's going to play with Van Aanholt, it'd be better in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or whether you do think actually if we're going to play 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1, whether you do think that actually it might be better to either play one at left back and have one on the bench, or whether you do think that actually they can both do a shift out wide. So do comment below with your opinions on that. Now to move on to the winger Andros Townsend, who I am going to give a 6. Tried hard down the right but couldn't quite find that telling pass or cross. Did however draw the foul to win the penalty. So Andros Townsend here, I've given him a 6, and unlike his performances recently, you know, against Man United he got the goal, and obviously against Chelsea I thought he had quite a good influence in terms of being one of our only attacking threats because of how well Chelsea were playing. And once again in this game here against Huddersfield, I think he was one of our better players offensively, and although he wasn't the best in terms of being an outstanding player and having a massive influence on the game, I still thought that his effort and his sort of, yeah, basically him actually trying hard, I think that was quite crucial in terms of how we were going to, you know, win the game. And obviously I like to see from players, I like to see good effort, and that's something that we see every week from MacArthur. And certainly Andros Townsend, you know, he's going to go unnoticed this season for his performances, but actually in terms of having all of the assists he's had, a few of the goals he's got, but also just his overall attacking influence, he could arguably be one of these sort of under the radar players who's actually having a really good season. And this game here against Huddersfield, like I've said already, he wasn't great, but still sort of his performance, much like MacArthur's, will go under the radar because he obviously didn't do anything fantastic. But the thing I liked about his performance is the fact that he tried really hard down the right, and you know, whether that was actually finding a cross or getting a pass. Now obviously it's great to see players like Townsend have the effort, and it's obviously that's what we see from him every game. He has the effort, he has the stamina, but maybe this game here, although he was trying, and although he was trying to get cut inside and put in as many crosses as possible, he was just missing that telling pass or cross in this game. So although he was looking to get in positions where he could cross the ball, yes, he'd done that, and that was the first step, but a second step in terms of providing that pass or cross, that was something that was missing from his game. So that's the main reason I can't give him a 7 as opposed to the 6 I've given him. Purely the fact that although he had the effort, he didn't quite have the end product to go with that. But however, you know, this is one of the main reasons I've given him a 6, is obviously he did draw that foul to win the penalty. You know, great build-up play in terms of the penalty. You know, Wilfried Zaha picking up the ball on the edge of the area, doing a 1-2 with James MacArthur, then putting Andros Townsend through. And even though Townsend, yes, he probably wasn't going to get a goal shot there, but the defender shouldn't really be making that challenge there. Takes Townsend down, definite penalty, and of course, like I've said already, Luka, fantastic penalty to score as well. So Andros Townsend there, although he didn't have that much influence in the game, the fact that at a crucial moment in terms of winning that penalty, the fact that he was able to do so was of course great to see. And I don't really think that there were, you know, you could argue that he dived there or he went down too easily, because like I've already mentioned, he's running through on goal. Yes, he's probably not going to get a shot away or a cross, but there's no need for the defender to come sliding in there, and we rightly did get a penalty. But you know, like I've said already, I've given him a 6 because obviously he had good effort, but I do think he played okay. You know, I'm not going to put him down for his performance. I don't think he played terribly, but once again, you know, he wasted a few chances to cross and pass. So if he had that in the game, we probably would have got another goal possibly if he put in a few more crosses. And even if it weren't that he put in loads of crosses, if he had a few more passes here and there, maybe he could have set up another attack. So who knows? But overall, Andros Townsend, not the best performance, but definitely not disappointing. So hopefully in the next few games, he can get back into his rhythm like he did against Man United, and hopefully get a few more chances at goal. Now to move on to the winger, Wilfried Zaha, who I'm going to give a 6. Not one of his best games, with very little coming off for the Ivorian Coast international. He tried his tricks, but couldn't conjure up any of the magic that he's capable of. So Wilfried Zaha here, I've given him a 6, and much like the performance with Andros Townsend, you know, he wasn't necessarily great in this game. You know, he didn't necessarily have too much influence, But I still thought that, much like when he came on against Chelsea, you know, you can expect him not to be 100% fit. And certainly that did show up parts in this game in terms of him not being as good as he can be. But he is showing that even though he hasn't played in about maybe 6-7 weeks due to injury, he's still showing that he's still got he's still got that energy, he's still got that skill. But we've obviously, with this international break, hopefully that will get him and all of the other injured players back up to scratch, because if he looks good when he's playing not necessarily 100% fit, just think about how good he will be when he is 100%. But like what I've said with Townsend, this necessarily wasn't one of his best games. You know, I thought coming off the bench against Chelsea, he made a real good impact, but maybe that's because he only came on for the second 45 minutes, whereas here he played the majority of the game, and you can understand him being taken off. Obviously, Roy Hodgson said it's not really that serious of an injury because he kept getting kicked and he had a bit of fatigue. That's why he was taken off. So it's not really a serious injury, but you could see towards the end of the game with him being quite a bit tired. And like I said, with the international break, that would only improve. But even though, you know, he wasn't really having his best games, he still, you know, tried to do a few tricks here and there, but nothing really came off. You know, he couldn't really make that impact. And like I've said, he tried his tricks. You know, he tried to run past players and do things like that, but he couldn't really conjure up any of that magic. You know, we know he's capable of, you know, doing a nutmeg and getting in the box. Didn't really see that in this game, but if I do have to pick up one thing which I saw was great in this game is, although he wasn't necessarily getting into the box, when he was making runs to the byline and crossing the ball in, quite a lot of the time he was winning corners for us, and one of the corners that Zaha won in terms of getting a deflection off the defender, one of them did lead to us scoring a goal. So although, you know, they're not going to count this as a pre-assist, but I do think that actually I like to talk about pre-assist, and it was Zaha who set up the corner for Luka to assist Tomkins. So you could say that actually, although he wasn't having one of his best games, he was still quite integral in terms of getting us that first goal. So if you do want to look at positives, I suppose you've got that, and the fact that he won quite a lot of corners, and the fact that he still uses pace to get 10 yards ahead of the Huddersfield players. But I still think it wasn't one of his best games. But like I've said at the beginning, with the international break, even though he's obviously going out on international duty, obviously because the Ivory Coast are not in the World Cup, they're not really going to be playing that many good teams. So hopefully that will just give him a chance to sort of get back to full fitness and hopefully come back even fitter, even stronger than he already is, because after this latest injury he's looked like he's bulked up again in the gym. So he's obviously showing that when he's injured his knee, he's still going in the gym doing the work, and he's certainly looking a lot more stronger, a lot more physical. So if you can combine his physicality that he's got now with the magic, with the skill, then hopefully there is a lot more to come from him. But Wilfried Zaha here, a 6 for him. Now to move on to the final player and striker, Christian Benteke, who I'm going to give a 7. Played much better in this game than he did against Chelsea, leading the line effectively and bringing others into play. So Christian Benteke here, he is a player that's obviously come up for quite a lot of criticism recently, and understandably when you consider he's only scored 2 goals this season. But I actually do think in this game, if you compare it to his performance against Chelsea, where he got taken off at half-time, I think that he came into this game with the right attitude in terms of being dropped and actually proving doubters wrong. And I thought that actually, even though he didn't score in this game or assist, I still thought he had quite a big influence on the game, and arguably could have even won a penalty towards the end of the game. So overall, although people want to scapegoat him and blame him and say we should sell him, I actually do think if you look at this performance as a whole, other than not scoring a goal, I do think that his performance was really good. But like I've already mentioned, I think he was much better than he was against Chelsea. You know, against Chelsea, he wasn't really winning balls in the air. He was getting, spatially, you know, he was actually getting in the way of Alexander Sorloth quite a lot in this game, in that game against Chelsea. Whereas here, with him playing, obviously, primarily, well, at the beginning with Zaha up front, and then obviously we moved to a 4-5-1, which meant that he was the main striker up front. That seemed to suit him better, and obviously he got much better chances. And the thing I really liked about his game is, even though he's a lone striker, I think he obviously led the line really well and was really effective in terms of bringing other players into the game. And that's what you want to see from a striker. You know, if a striker's not going to score goals, you want them to either assist goals or actually get others involved. And that's something that I saw in his game. The fact that he's effectively able to hold up the ball, make sure other players can't get it, and wait for players to get around him. And then the fact that he's able to pass the ball out and get other players involved. That was, of course, great to see as well. And, you know, that's something that we've missed in terms of, you know, because we haven't got that creative number 10 like Loftus-Cheek, who hasn't been playing recently. Because we're lacking that, you've got to rely on getting the ball to Benteke and him holding it up for other players to get involved. And personally for me, although he wasn't directly involved in any of the goals we did score against Huddersfield, I do certainly think that he arguably, you know, was one of our crucial players going forward, and that's why I've given him a 7, because he obviously gave us that sort of influence and that physicality up front, which is something that obviously Huddersfield didn't do or didn't have, and we were obviously able to get on top of them. But obviously, there is obviously a downside if you don't, for a striker not scoring a goal. You know, he probably could and probably should have scored on a few occasions. You know, there was one where he went down for a penalty. Arguably, you know, even though it would have been a soft penalty, the defender's pulling his shirt, which in the eyes of the law, that is a penalty. You know, you can't argue about that. Yes, it would be soft penalty, and I personally would be angry if it being given against us. But certainly for me, I do think it's a penalty. You know, there's no need for the defender to pull the player back there because he wasn't directly on goal. He probably would have hit the side netting because of the angle, so there's no need to do that. So I do think that was a penalty. Yes, he did go down a bit dramatically, but still, you know, contact in the box, if that would be anywhere else on the pitch, the referee would have called that back for a pulled shirt, so I don't see why he couldn't have had that there. But then you could say on the other hand, yes, that should have been a penalty, but then Benteke, rather than running through on goal and getting taken down, maybe he should have held up the ball and passed to someone like Andros Townsend, who was in space. And there were a couple of times where actually, yes, he should have done better himself in terms of finishing the chance, but also he should have passed it to other players around him, which ultimately would have been the better option. But Christian Benteke here, I understand the criticism he gets, and I understand why people are upset, but actually, even though he's not scoring goals, we've got other players in the team who are scoring goals, so it's not necessarily a massive issue the fact that he's not scoring goals, because obviously other players are doing so. But I do think that even though he's not scoring, you've got to look at the positives from his gameplay, and his hold-up play and the fact that he's able to get other players involved is one of the most important things to the way we set up. So even though he's not really scoring recently, I think we've got to cut him a bit of slack, purely because his performances haven't actually been that bad. So really for me, you've got to consider all things before you go ahead and criticise a player. So Christian Benteke here, I do think a 7 is a fair result. Do comment below with your views about his performance. So obviously there were 2 subs in this game. Yohan Cabaye came on relatively early in the game, came on for sub on about 20 minutes, and I'm probably going to give him a 6 for his overall performance. And obviously Loftus-Cheek towards the end of the game, Zaha was obviously fatigued, getting kicked all over the place. Not really a serious injury, but he obviously got taken off. Hodgson taking a precaution there, just taking him off. And Loftus-Cheek came on. No real rating for him because he came on in the 89th minute, so no real time to make an impact. Whereas on the other hand, I think that Yohan Cabaye, I've given him a 6. Arguably I could have given him a 7 because he came off the bench and he done exactly what I would expect a sub to do. You know, he came on, made an impact, and even though I talked about Slop going off injured, you know, it's not ideal with a player going off injured. But the fact that he came off obviously gave us that option to move or to change the formation, and that 4-5-1 formation seemed to fit us better. And certainly Cabaye coming into that midfield, making sure we had 3 men in the midfield and 2 out wide and 1 up front, that sort of change in formation gave us a little bit more solid base and more control of the game. And certainly Yohan Cabaye, I thought, was one of the most important players in terms of helping us get back into the game. And certainly towards the end of the game he had a few chances to score himself, which shows that actually he's not only having an impact in terms of the midfield battle, but also going forward he's still got that ability. Even though he's been injured, he's still got that ability to strike a ball from wide. But once again, obviously he's one of these other players who's come back from injury. Obviously him, Loftus-Cheek, Sakho, Zaha, really 3 or 4 important players who've come back from injury. And as you've seen here, when all 4 of them play in the game, albeit Loftus-Cheek off the bench, we win a game. So it's no coincidence that when we haven't got our best players, it's difficult to win games. And as soon as we get our best players back, the players with the most influence, we go on to win the game. So really that just highlights how important they are, you know, in terms of players in the team. But like I said, he came on obviously for the injured Jeffrey up on about the 20th minute. Didn't really have much impact for the first half. You know, in the first half he just went along doing his business. Probably a 6 out of 10 performance in terms of just getting on with the game. Nothing really outstanding. Whereas in the second half I thought he improved drastically. You know, he was having shots left, right and centre. You know, there was one that dipped almost into the top corner. The goalkeeper made a save. There was another one which was going for the middle of the goal. The goalkeeper was able to deflect that behind for a corner. So towards the end of the game, unlike the first half, Cabaye went forward, had a few chances on goal. Ultimately, a few of them obviously went wide and a few of them got saved by the goalkeeper. But the fact that he's able to bring us that influence going forward and having that attacking impetus to have shots from outside the box and force a save from the goalkeeper, that was of course great to see as well. And you know, with the likes of Milivojevic actually just covering all of the defensive work, that allows the likes of MacArthur and Cabaye to go further forward. And as we saw towards the end of the game here, if you give someone like Cabaye the freedom on the edge of the area, he can punch the opposition. So personally for me, do think he had a really good performance. I probably would have given him a 7 if he had slightly more influence on the first half, but certainly for a second half performance, I do think he does deserve a 6. So really for me, you know, just to sort of summarise the game, obviously I've talked quite a lot about the player performances and, you know, how I thought that it was a really professional performance. But overall, you know, you've got to look at the game. You know, we're up to 30 points now in the league, out of the relegation zone. Obviously, there's quite a few more games to go now, so we've obviously got to be focused on them. But this is such a big result. You know, if we lost to Huddersfield, they would have been, I think it's 7 points ahead of us. It's looking quite bad there, quite bleak for us in terms of not being able to catch them and being stuck in the relegation zone. So it's such a big result in terms of getting us to 30 points now, which is, you know, only a few wins away from that 40-point mark. But also it's obviously great to get us back to, you know, almost touching distance of Huddersfield. But overall, you know, yes, it's a big result, but it's also a great performance. You know, I thought we played really well, not only defensively, but offensively. We were quite professional with our performance. You know, no silly errors, hardly any silly errors here and there. And every player done exactly what they've been instructed to do. And obviously, you can understand, obviously, the game, there was loads of really bad conditions, you know, all of the snow, blizzard sort of type conditions. But nevertheless, it's still a massive win for us, you know, despite all of the conditions, which would, of course, make it hard for any team to play football. Despite that, once again, the team being professional, got on with the job, even though the weather was bad, and we were able to get what was an important win. But obviously, I've said already, it's a massive win for us, but this is slightly further away from the overall performance. But I can't believe how filthy Moy was on Wilf. You know, he was obviously, Wilf we know is too good for most opposition players, but you know, I know Moy's a good midfielder, he's been really good for Huddersfield this season, but towards the end of the game, with him getting frustrated with how good Wilf was, he was quite filthy in terms of his tackles and blocks, and that was just something I wanted to pick up, you know. Although it's a really great performance, you know, I do think that Huddersfield were getting quite dirty towards the end of the game in terms of making all of these tackles and stuff on Wilf, but I do think that nevertheless, good team performance from us, but I just wanted to pick up on that little sort of downer in terms of, you know, playing filthy. We want to play the game fair, but, you know, Moy decided not to do that, and whether that was instructed from the manager or whether that's just Moy himself, whatever it wasn't quite nice to see, because it was quite a fair game up until that point. But then, of course, you can understand the Huddersfield players getting a bit frustrated with the quality that Wilf does have. But of course, the final point for me is, you know, I've already talked about how big a result it is, but based on what I talked about with the subs, the fact that we've got 4 key players coming back in Zaha, Loftus-Cheek, Young by Mamadou Sakho, these 4 players come back and we win a game, which really just shows how important they are. And it just really highlights for me in particular that actually if we can keep this team fit and keep all of our important players fit and playing, then surely that will be enough. And I do think it will be enough, because we've got the quality now, and it's shown that when these players come in we win a game, which shows actually how important they are to the side. So if we can keep them all fit till the end of the season, then hopefully we'll be safe and avoid relegation. So I'm now going to move on to my Man of the Match award. But before I do that and give you my Man of the Match and who I thought the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations I put forward for the award. So much like you heard in that small sort of summary I gave you at the end of the player ratings, it was obviously an overall very good team performance, not only defensively but offensively, and also the control we had in the midfield. Obviously everything in this game really about our performance really shone, and just showed that actually if we do get all of our important players back, then obviously everyone can, you know, work together and actually put in a really solid performance. So overall, it was a really good team performance, and arguably people like Wilfried Zaha, Andros Townsend, they could have also been in the shortlist for the Man of the Match award, but obviously I always like to pick 4, and I think that these 4 in particular stood out for me. And although there was no real attacking player on this shortlist, they were still quite important in terms of helping us secure that clean sheet, which obviously we haven't been able to do recently. So the 4 nominations are Aaron Wan-Bissaka, James Tomkins, Luka Milivojevic and James MacArthur. Now obviously, first one, obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he's been on the shortlist for the last sort of 4 games here, once again highlighting how good he's been since coming into the side, not really looking out of place in the Premier League team, and once again he put in a very solid performance here, a 7 out of 10, and that's why once again I've put him on the shortlist. I thought that once again he was composed at right back, you know, not looking out of place, And the main thing in terms of helping us keep the clean sheet, I think he made a number of good challenges and tackles, and obviously helped the attack go forward. So really, he was quite crucial, not only defensively but offensively, to the way we played. And obviously that's why he's on the shortlist. Whereas someone like Zaha was good in spots, the same with Townsend. Whereas Aaron Wan-Bissaka was actually good throughout, and that's what makes him better than them two people who didn't quite make it on. But also the fact that he was quite important to the clean sheet is the reason he's on there. Obviously James Tomkins, this guy was an absolute beast, an absolute tank in this game again. And much like he's been recently, he's continued his form. And much like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he's one of these players who's consistently, over the last few games, been in the man of the match shortlist section. But once again, obviously, as I said already, Tomkins continuing his assured displays like he's been doing recently. But the fact that he obviously was able to perform well and combine that with a goal was great to see as well. So even if he hadn't have scored the goal, because of how good his defensive performance was, I would have put him in there anyway. But the fact that he obviously scored the goal when Huddersfield failed to deal with the corner, the fact that he was able to capitalise on the goalkeeper's mistake, that was of course great to see as well. So obviously his defensive performance, he probably would have got in there anyway, but the fact that he added a goal to that and was, just absolutely fantastic throughout the game is the reason he's on there. Obviously Luka Milivojevic, once again, like I said in the player ratings, neat and tidy in the midfield, very good controlling in terms of winning that midfield battle, and in terms of giving that screen, that protection to the back four, I thought he'd done that superbly. And the main thing really is, much like Tomkins, I thought his performance was great, but the fact that he also scored the goal from a penalty spot, confidently stepped up, the fact that he also done that as well is the reason he's on the shortlist. And it was at a point of the game where it's 1-0, it could go either way. Huddersfield could either get back into it, or Palace put the game to bed. Luckily for us, Milivojevic, no doubt, whenever he goes up to take a penalty that he scores it, once again, like he always does, puts the goal in, and, put the game to bed, and obviously gave us that 2-goal lead cushion. And obviously the final player, James McArthur, I talked about him in the player ratings, but his performances often go unnoticed because obviously people don't really look at what he does in terms of putting pressure on the back four, because he's not assisting or defending, or he's not assisting goals and he's not scoring them and he's not going back and defending. But I do think that his role in the midfield is really important in terms of putting in that energy, just having that control in the midfield, and once again putting pressure on the opposition so they have less attacking options. That sort of energy and that sort of, I don't know if there's another word to explain it, but really just his energy and how energetic he is the main reason he's on the shortlist, but also one of the main reasons why he's such a crucial player for us. Now personally for me, I think there's only one standout player here. These four players in particular were great in the game in terms of scoring goals, helping the attacks going forward and just restricting the opposition. But for me, I think there's only one outstanding player for me, and obviously who's been fantastic in the last few weeks, and that is James Tomkins. So congratulations, James. You don't win a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was another solid performance from you. But the main reason I've given it to him is obviously in the player ratings he got an 8 as opposed to the 7 that the other players got. But the main reason for me is just because of how crucial he was to keeping a clean sheet. Playing alongside Mamadou Sakho, I thought he was really, really solid, kept us really tight at the back, and of course kept us in the game with his tight defending and how good he was. But the fact that he was also able to capitalise, be a threat, in terms of scoring a goal, and also have a goal line shot cleared off the line as well at the other end for Huddersfield. So the fact that he was able to do that, not only be good defensively, but have that influence going forward, is the thing that really stood out for me. But like I've said already, Wan-Bissaka, Tomkins, Milivojevic, McArthur, all worthy nominations of the award. But overall, I do think he deserves the award. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got interviews with Roy Hodgson, James McArthur and Andros Townsend following the game.
From word go, we were at them, and it was so important to start well and not get the crowd behind them and stop that. So we did that today, I thought, and managed to get the goal fairly early on. But it's just still a long way to the end of the first half. But we obviously rode that storm because they were looking quite sort of. They're looking quite good really towards the end of that first half, but it's always going to happen like that when you score a goal, and managed to get the victory and a clean sheet.
Good for you to have Mamadou Sakho alongside you today. You had quite a good partnership around this time last season as well.
Yeah, it's nice, Mama, obviously, to get back and back fit, and hopefully he can keep away from injuries. So it's just nice to play with him again and have that partnership like I had. But I think obviously when Kel's come in as well, he done such a good job. So everyone, it's all about our squad depth now that we've got and all these injuries coming back. So that's massive for us.
Got all these players coming back. One player that maybe a few months ago we didn't see coming was Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back. How good has he been?
Yeah, he's going from strength to strength. Really, you can see how well he's doing. Defensively, he's very good. I think sometimes his positional sense will come with experience, but you can see how good he's done, and fair play to him, because in the situation that we're in, and having the calm head that he's got on his shoulders has been brilliant.
What's it like playing in those conditions today? It was pretty changeable, wasn't it?
Yeah, like as a defender, you get a ball coming in and it can go offline, and because of that wind and the snow, sometimes you couldn't see. But it's just so important that we rode that, and we didn't concede like towards the late on, because otherwise it would have been a long time. It would have felt like towards the end of the game. So it's nice to keep that clean sheet.
And out of the relegation zone now for at least 2 weeks until the next game.
Yeah, like no one's getting carried away. This is going to be so many changes now until the end of the season. It's just that we take this victory forward now, going on to Liverpool, and get the fans behind us at Selhurst. It's going to be a difficult game for Liverpool. So hopefully we can get something there, and going forward, because we've got a little break now, but everyone's got a massive boost from this victory.
And finally, for you personally, do you feel like you're in the best form you've been at since you've been at the club? You've had a nice run of games recently.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like days. I felt like I had this conversation last year at this sort of time, and no, it's just because I'm stayed away from injuries. Hopefully I can keep away from them, because that's the only thing that sort of stops the momentum. But now I've got a good run of games behind me. I feel that's always massive for me. I can keep that momentum going, and hopefully I'm showing on the pitch. That I can step up to the plate at times, but it's just not about that. It's just about the experience that we've actually got in our team, and it's good, especially in the position we're in going forward. And I'm just enjoying my football. Obviously not enjoying the situation that we're in, but I'm enjoying it. I feel like I'm sort of consistent, which is always important as a player. In the Premier League, and my experience as well. Hopefully, is sort of helping me out.
And just fantastic away win today, and you really got at them right from the start, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we knew the key was making a fast start. We did that. We could have scored in the first few minutes from Maka from another corner, and then Tonks got on the second corner, and we kind of controlled it from there. And as away days go, it's up there with the best.
As a physical battle as well, they're quite a physical team. Was it really important for you to match them in that department?
Yeah, massively. We've played different sort of personnel in the last 3 games. We played the top teams, but we knew this would be a different battle in itself. Huddersfield, a very technical side. They like to play, they like to press, and like you said, they're physical as well. But I think everyone to a man dealt with that today, and I think we thoroughly deserved the 3 points, and I think it's a well overdue 3 points.
Yeah, and there's a slight change of system today. Was it 4-3-3? Do you feel that gets the best out of you and Wilf?
I'm not too sure. I think that's for others to kind of have their opinion. I enjoy playing in a 4-4-2, and I enjoy playing in a 4-3-3. So I think it's good that we have the 2 formations going into the last 7 days to chop and change as and when the manager needs to.
You won the penalty there. It was a clear penalty, wasn't it? And Luka stepped up. He hasn't been well, has he? So he did well to get through that game.
Yeah, no, I can't speak highly enough of Luka. He's been tremendous, and when he wakes up and he says he's been vomiting all night, you fear the worst, but Luka as a person, he's just going to get on with it. And yeah, he was incredible to keep going for the 90 minutes, and I'm sure tomorrow morning we wake up and we see the stats. I'm sure he'll be up there. Him and Maka will be up there in the stats, the physical stats again. So yeah, incredible from Luka, and yeah, we're going to need him in the last 7 games if we're going to stay up.
There's bad conditions out there. What's it like trying to play the ball on the floor when the snow comes in like that?
Obviously it's difficult, but both teams are in the same boat. I think we couldn't play the style of football we wanted to play today, but neither did they. I think we adapted well. We played long when we needed to, and we kept it when we needed to. So I think we adapted well and thoroughly deserved the 3 points.
Well, Roy, from the very first minute, the players showed their intent. A great away performance.
Yeah, it was, and in difficult conditions really, because not just the weather conditions, the pitch here, it's the ball doesn't travel quite as fast as it does on some other pitches, so it makes the passing very difficult, and it's the same for both teams, of course. But we normally like to move the ball quite quickly through the midfield. We found that a little bit harder, but certainly the determination of the players, the attitude was everything one could hope for. And luckily we got the goals this time, and it's an important victory because we're playing teams around us near the bottom of the table, and every time you get points, you improve your score, but you also, of course, take away from theirs.
Defensively, the players protected Wayne Hennessy incredibly well. Huddersfield didn't have a shot of any variety till after the hour mark.
No, it was good. I mean, obviously, Sakho coming back into the team brings a lot of experience, but I thought all the four players in the back line were very good. Their shape was good, their determination was good, and they were also well protected by the midfield players. And as the game wore on, of course, Huddersfield are duty bound to come out and try and take a few chances to get themselves back in the game, and that gave us quite a few opportunities on the counter-attack.
And James Tomkins capped a great personal display with a well-taken goal.
He was excellent, wasn't he? I mean, I thought, amazing enough, he and young Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I thought, were really, really good today. And we've got to keep these performances up. You know, we're going to need 7 more of them if we're going to stay in the league. But it's very encouraging today, at least, to come to a place like Huddersfield where everyone knows how hard it is to win and to go away with the 3 points. And I hope that's going to give us some type of boost, if you like, some confidence for the future.
It's impossible to do an interview with you without asking about injuries, because you got players back, but you've lost more. You lost Sorloth in training, and today Jeff Schlupp. What's the details?
Well, Sorloth, we don't know. It's a hamstring strain. I don't think it's a serious tear at the moment, but of course we've only got 2 weeks to get him fit before the next game. That's going to take a bit of doing. And with Jeff, we really don't know yet. You know, we'll have to wait and see. He's rolled his ankle over quite badly. He'll have a scan, and I can only hope that it is just a sort of a twisted ankle and no serious ligament damage, but we won't know till after the scan.
And Will Sahar, is he okay? You had to take him off as well?
I think he was tired, and what's more, he got fouled quite a lot, didn't he, in the second half? He did well for us there, because he took the ball up the field and he drew fouls. And I think it was just a question really of A, fatigue, and B, having taken 2 or 3 quite heavy knocks in the challenges when he was trying to burst through the defence.
And just finally, it's one of the great atmospheres in the Premier League here this season. Your supporters had a pretty treacherous journey up the M1 in the snow, and they did you proud today.
They're magnificent, aren't they? I mean, they really are. To be quite honest, we're playing away from home in a place where there is fanatical support, and yet really I was more conscious all the time of our supporters than I was of the Huddersfield supporters, and it's great credit to them. They can generate that noise, generate that support as well. And luckily today we gave them a reason, if you like, for coming this far, and hopefully we've sent them home happy.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Roy Hodgson, James Tomkins and Andros Townsend had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Huddersfield. But make sure to come back next week for a post-match review of the game against Liverpool. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.